50 pounds of sweet potatoes from a trash bag. Not a raised bed, not a garden plot, and not an expensive grow bag that costs $30 at the garden center. A standard black heavy-duty trash bag, the kind sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now that costs less than 50 cents. And here is the part that is going to completely change how you think about growing root crops. The trash bag does not just work for sweet potatoes, it works better than most traditional containers. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why. Stay with me, because the harvest reveal at the end of this method is something most gardeners refuse to believe until they see it with their own eyes. Before we touch a single slip or a single bag, I need to explain something that nobody else is covering. Because if you understand why this method works, everything else in this video will make complete sense, and you will never look at sweet potato growing the same way again. Here is the fundamental problem with growing sweet potatoes in the ground. Sweet potatoes are not just root crops. They are aggressive, sprawling, space-hungry plants that send their tubers outward in every direction, following the path of least resistance through the soil. In open ground, that path of least resistance is horizontal. The tubers spread wide and shallow. Some go left, some go right. Some follow old root channels from previous plants. The result is a scattered, unpredictable harvest where half your tubers are found 3 feet from where you planted the slip, and half of them are the size of your finger. Now, here is what changes when you grow in a trash bag. The bag creates a physical boundary. The tubers cannot spread horizontally. They cannot follow random soil channels. They hit the bag wall, and they turn downward into the deepest, richest, most oxygenated part of your growing medium. And that forced vertical growth, that redirection of tuber development, is what concentrates your harvest. Instead of 20 small tubers scattered across 4 feet of garden bed, you get 8 to 12 large, dense, heavy tubers packed into one contained vertical column. That concentration is what produces 50 pounds from one bag. Not magic, not luck. Physics and plant biology working together in a container that costs 50 cents. Now, drop a comment right now and tell me what country are you watching from, because this method works in every climate, every country, every growing zone. And I want to know exactly where in the world someone is about to pull 50 pounds of sweet potatoes from a trash bag for the first time. Let's build this system step by step, preparing the trash bag container, the setup decisions that determine your final yield before you plant a single slip. Here's where the first critical mistake happens, and it happens before a single plant goes in the ground. Most people who try the trash bag method grab whatever bag is under their sink, poke a few holes in the bottom, fill it with soil, and wonder why their harvest is disappointing. The bag selection and preparation phase is not optional. It is foundational. And getting it wrong silently limits your yield from the very beginning. Here is exactly what you need. You want a contractor-grade heavy-duty trash bag, not a standard kitchen bag. Standard kitchen bags are thin, light, and designed to be used once. They tear under the weight of moist soil. They break down in UV light within weeks, and they cannot support the structural pressure of expanding tubers. Contractor bags are built for heavy loads. They're thick enough to hold shape under 40 to 50 pounds of soil and root mass. They're UV resistant enough to last a full growing season outdoors. And they're available at hardware stores and dollar stores for under $2 per bag. That is your container investment, $2. Now the drainage preparation. This is the step that most trash bag tutorials skip entirely, and it is the step that directly determines whether your sweet potato roots develop into massive tubers or rot in waterlogged soil halfway through the season. Take your contractor bag unfolded completely. Using a knife, a skewer, or a heated nail, punch 20 to 24 holes across the bottom third of the bag. Not just the very bottom, the entire bottom third. You want holes in the base and up the lower sides. Because as your soil settles and compacts over the season, the drainage zone needs to extend higher than just the floor of the bag. Then, Fold the top of the bag down by about 6 inches to create a rolled cuff around the rim. This cuff does two critical things. It structurally reinforces the top of the bag, preventing it from tearing when you move it, and it creates a defined planting depth marker so you know exactly how deep your growing medium column is. Place your prepared bag in its permanent growing location before you fill it. A 50-pound bag of moist soil cannot be safely moved. Choose your location now, somewhere that receives a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight daily. Set it on a hard surface, a patio, a driveway, a deck, not directly on grass or bare soil. Grass and bare soil beneath the bag creates slug pathways and allows roots to escape through the drainage holes into the ground, which defeats the entire containment purpose of the method. Hard surface only. Your bag is positioned. Now let's talk about what goes inside it. The soil mix that builds massive tubers, the specific blend that commercial sweet potato growers don't want you to know. Standard potting mix in a trash bag will grow sweet potatoes, but it will not grow 50 pounds of sweet potatoes. And here is why. Standard potting mix is formulated for general container growing. It holds moisture well, drains adequately, and provides a neutral base for most vegetables. But sweet potatoes are not most vegetables. They are aggressive underground expanders that need a growing medium with three very specific properties. They need exceptional drainage because sweet potato tubers sitting in moisture-saturated soil develop surface rot and corky skin that dramatically reduces yield quality. They need loose friable texture because dense, compacted soil physically restricts tuber expansion. A tuber pushing against compacted soil expands more slowly and reaches a smaller maximum size. And they need a specific nutrient profile, high in potassium and phosphorus, deliberately low in nitrogen. High nitrogen in sweet potato growing pushes the plant into vine production, long, beautiful, lush vines with minimal underground tuber development. You end up with a gorgeous plant and almost nothing to harvest. Here is the exact blend that addresses all three requirements. Take 50% standard potting mix as your base. Add 30% coarse horticultural sand. Not fine beach sand, not play sand, coarse horticultural or builder sand. This dramatically improves drainage and reduces compaction over the season. Add 15% perlite for additional aeration and long-term structural integrity, and add 5% wood ash if you have access to it from a fireplace or fire pit. Wood ash is one of the highest natural potassium sources available to gardeners. It directly feeds the underground tuber development process and shifts the plant's energy away from vine growth toward root production. If you do not have wood ash, substitute with a small amount of potassium-rich organic fertilizer like kelp meal or green sand, mixed into the base blend before filling the bag. Fill your prepared contractor bag with this mix to within 8 inches of the rolled cuff. That 8-inch gap above the soil line is intentional. It is the hilling space, and it is one of the most powerful yield-multiplying techniques in the entire system. I will explain exactly how to use it later. But first, let's talk about slips. Planting sweet potato slips correctly, the planting technique that determines how many tubers your bag produces. Here is where most gardeners make the mistake that costs them half their harvest. And it is such a simple mistake made because nobody explains the biology behind why it matters. A sweet potato slip is not a seed. It is not a transplant in the traditional sense. It is a rooted cutting, a stem section with leaves, and an emerging root system that will generate tubers along every buried node on its stem. Read that again. Tubers form along every buried node. This means the more stem you bury, the more tuber initiation sites you create, and the more tubers your plant produces. Most beginners plant their slip the way they would plant any seedling. They dig a small hole, set the root ball in, cover the roots, and leave the stem exposed. Doing this gives you tuber formation only at the root ball, 3 to 5 maximum. The correct technique, The one that multiplies your tuber count is horizontal slip planting. Lay your slip horizontally across the soil surface. Bury the entire stem from the root end to the last two sets of leaves at a depth of 3 to 4 inches below the soil surface. Leave only the top 2 to 3 sets of leaves above ground. Every buried node along that horizontal stem will initiate its own tuber development point. A slip with 6 buried nodes creates 6 tuber initiation sites. 6 sites each producing 1 to 3 tubers gives you 6 to 18 tubers from a single slip. In one trash bag with 2 slips planted using this method, the mathematics of tuber initiation sites is exactly what drives the 50-pound harvest claim. This is not theory. It is basic sweet potato plant physiology, and it is the information that every other video on this topic casually walks past without ever explaining why it works. Plant horizontally, bury deep, leave only the top leaves exposed. Water gently after planting, using a watering can with a rose head, not a direct stream that displaces your shallow buried slips. And then step back because the next mistake most gardeners make happens in the weeks immediately after planting. Watering and sunlight strategy, the counterintuitive moisture approach that bigger tubers demand. Sweet potatoes are drought-tolerant once established, and that single fact, misunderstood and misapplied, is responsible for more failed trash bag harvests than any other factor, because drought-tolerant doesn't mean drought-preferred. And the timing of your watering, not just the frequency, is what separates a 20-pound harvest from a 50-pound one. Here is the specific protocol. In the first 2 weeks after planting, water consistently and generously. The slips are establishing their root systems. They need reliable moisture to push roots downward into the soil column. Check the bag daily. Insert your finger 4 inches into the soil at the edge of the bag, not near the plant where you might disturb roots. If it feels dry at 4 inches, water deeply. If it feels moist at 4 inches, do not water. After the first 2 weeks, once you see vigorous vine growth above the soil surface, your slips have established. Now the watering strategy shifts. Allow the top 3 to 4 inches of soil to dry completely between waterings, then water deeply until water flows freely from the drainage holes. This deep and dry cycle does something critical. The dry period signals the plant that surface moisture is unreliable. The plant responds by pushing roots and tubers deeper into the soil column, chasing the moisture that persists in the lower layers of the bag. That downward pursuit of moisture is exactly what drives tuber depth. And tuber depth in a trash bag is directly correlated with tuber size. Deep tubers have more vertical space to expand. They encounter less compaction pressure. They grow larger. The deep and dry watering cycle is the mechanism behind it. For sunlight, position your bag where it receives a minimum of 6 hours of direct sun daily. 8 hours is ideal. 10 hours will push your vines into aggressive growth that requires active management. Which brings us to managing vine growth for bigger tubers, the vine discipline technique that redirects plant energy underground. By week 4 to 6, your trash bag will be producing vines. Long, vigorous, beautiful vines that spread in every direction and can reach 6 to 8 feet in length by midsummer. And here is the decision point where most gardeners destroy their own harvest. They let the vines sprawl. The vines touch the ground. Where a vine touches moist soil, it roots. It starts developing its own tuber system in the ground, outside your bag. Your plant is now feeding 2 separate root systems, the one inside your bag and the one forming wherever the vine has rooted in the ground. The plant divides its energy. Your bag tubers get smaller, your ground tubers are scattered and small, and your total yield drops dramatically. The fix is vine lifting, also called vine rolling. Every 7 to 10 days, walk around your bag and gently lift any vines that have touched the ground. Roll them back toward the bag. Coil them loosely around the base. This simple 10-minute maintenance task keeps all tuber initiation happening inside the bag, and keeps 100% of the plant's energy focused on the tubers you can actually harvest. Now, this is also the moment to implement hilling. Remember the 8-inch gap you left above the soil line when you filled the bag? This is why. At week 4, add a 3-inch layer of your soil mix into that gap. At week 8, add another 2 to 3 inches. As you add soil, the newly buried section of the main stem creates additional tuber initiation sites. More buried stem, more initiation sites, more tubers. The hilling technique used in combination with vine management is the system within the system, the compounding technique that pushes a good harvest into a truly extraordinary one. Do not skip it. Do not rush it. Hill at week 4 and week 8. Lift vines every 10 days and then let the plant do its work. Signs your sweet potatoes are ready, reading the signals that tell you the perfect harvest moment has arrived. Most gardeners harvest too early. They get impatient. They see the vines look lush and full. They assume the tubers must be ready. They tear open the bag and they find dozens of small, underdeveloped potatoes that needed another 3 to 4 weeks to reach full size. Sweet potatoes need 100 to 120 frost-free days from slip planting to full maturity. That is your baseline. Mark the date you planted. Count forward 100 days. That is your earliest possible harvest window. But the calendar is just the start. Here are the specific visual signals that confirm harvest readiness, signals that competitor videos almost never explain. The first signal is vine yellowing. When the lower leaves on your vines begin to turn yellow and dry, not from disease or drought stress, but as a natural progression starting from the oldest leaves at the base, the plant is beginning to redirect its energy downward. It is finishing vine production and consolidating resources into the tubers. This yellowing is the plant signaling that it is almost done. The second signal is vine dieback. When the vine tips, the newest growth at the ends of the longest vines, begin to shrivel and reseed rather than pushing new leaves, the plant has entered its final maturation phase. Harvest within 2 weeks of observing tip dieback. The third signal is the soil pull test. Carefully insert your hand into the soil at the edge of the bag as far down as you can reach and gently feel for a tuber. If the tuber feels firm, smooth, and the skin feels set rather than soft and easily scratched by your thumbnail, the skin has cured to harvest-ready condition. Soft, easily scratched skin means the tubers need more time. Firm set skin means harvest day has arrived. And what happens on harvest day is the moment this entire system was built for. The harvest reveal, the moment that makes every other gardening method feel like a waste of time. Harvest day for a trash bag sweet potato system is genuinely one of the most satisfying moments in container gardening. And I want you to picture this clearly. You are standing in front of your bag. The vines have yellowed. The tips have died back. 110 days have passed since you planted 2 small slips into 50 cents worth of contractor bag. You grab the bag at the base, you tip it sideways onto a hard surface, and you peel it open. What falls out is not a handful of scattered tubers. It is a dense, compressed column of interlocking sweet potatoes, some the size of your forearm, so tightly packed that several of them had to grow around each other. You pull them apart one by one. You count them. 8, 12, 15, more. You weigh them. 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40. In a well-executed system with the right variety, the right soil blend, the horizontal slip planting technique, the vine lifting, the hilling, the deep and dry watering cycle, the drainage system, and the low nitrogen soil blend. 50 pounds of sweet potatoes from 1 contractor bag from 2 slips that cost a few dollars is not an exaggeration. It is the result of a system designed to maximize every single biological growth mechanism available to a sweet potato plant within the vertical constraints of a contained environment. Now here is something critical that most people miss at harvest. Do not wash your sweet potatoes immediately. Brush off loose soil gently, then cure them. Place them in a warm 80 to 85 degree Fahrenheit humid space for 10 to 14 days. Curing thickens the skin, converts starches to sugars, which is what gives sweet potatoes that rich caramel sweetness, and dramatically extends their storage life from weeks to months. Uncured sweet potatoes stored immediately after harvest will deteriorate within 2 to 3 weeks. Properly cured sweet potatoes will keep for 6 to 8 months in a cool, dry, dark space. 50 pounds of cured sweet potatoes from one contractor bag from 2 slips that cost a few dollars, using a growing technique that anyone in any country on any balcony with any level of gardening experience can execute from start to finish. Let me bring this all together one final time. A contractor bag, $2. The right soil blend, under $10. 2-day neutral sweet potato slips, under $5. Total investment, under $15. Total potential harvest, 50 pounds of sweet potatoes that will feed your household for months. That is the trash bag sweet potato system, and it works because it's not a gardening hack. It's applied plant biology. Every single technique in this video, horizontal slip planting, vine lifting, hilling, deep and dry watering cycle, the drainage system, the low nitrogen soil blend, exists because sweet potato plants respond to specific conditions in specific, predictable, repeatable ways. Learn the biology, apply the system, get the harvest. Now, I want to hear from you. Are you building this system this season? Which sweet potato variety are you planting? Beauregard, Covington, Georgia Jet, or something local to your region? Drop it in the comments. And if you commented at the beginning, I still want to know what country you're watching from, because someone is reading these comments right now who is about to plant their first trash bag sweet potato system. And your experience and your location might be exactly the encouragement they need to start. Share this video with one person who told you container gardening could not produce real food, because 50 pounds from a trash bag is about as real as food production gets. If this story changes the way you look at the humble trash bag in your kitchen, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the agricultural secrets that have been overlooked for too long. Let's grow the future together. The next harvest treasure will be revealed very soon.